Right, so I've spoken about getting into a business school in France so far on this channel, and this video is a transition to decisions you will make after you've moved to France. In today's video, I'm talking about 5 things I wish I didn't have to learn the hard way after having moved to France and settling into this European culture shock as an Indian. If you still have questions about getting into a business school and moving to France, that first part, then leave a comment in this video and you'll get an answer to it in the Q&A section of next week's video. Let's just jump straight into it. The first one, this is something that I am so guilty of. I've done this so much in the past, generalizing people. Don't do that, don't generalize. This probably comes natural to most people irrespective of where they are from. French women this, Indian men that, but most of these things are usually not true. Well, I do agree that there are systematic differences in cultures. Like Imagine Dragons says, no matter what we breed, we still are made of greed. We're finally the same thing. So full disclosure on this, back when I had moved to France, I would look at one woman wearing Ray-Ban glasses and go, well, these people have the purchasing power to get the best material possible in the market. And then I'd look at another person, another guy who's not wearing Ray-Ban glasses, wearing something that's local, a brand you've not heard of, something that's not hyped up. And I'd go, even though they have the money, they would choose to wear something that just serves the purpose. You know, no matter what happens, I would just choose to praise someone from France. I was in love with this language and this culture, you know. So generalizing is not really a good thing because it forces you to have an ideal perspective or point of view, opinion about someone, or a really derogatory, undesirable opinion about someone just because of their culture or their nationality. Even after the open borders that we have today, it is true that Dutch people are a certain way, French people are a certain way. That part culturally still is relevant. But we should be sensitive about what we are doing when we're generalizing someone just because we don't have anything else to say. So we just end up generalizing. Don't do that. Don't generalize. Don't point to people when you. I'm not talking about, you know, what children do when they just look at someone and they say, that man has a hat. Not that pointing. This is a really subconscious thing that most people do. I think it's just anthropological. When they're talking about someone or to someone, they tend to move their body towards them. I'm not even talking about that. Now imagine you're at a table having dinner and there is a, I don't know, Japanese person on the table. And if you're talking about Japanese history, if you keep calling out or pointing, every time you say Japan or talk about their imperial history or anything related to Japan, if you keep pointing to that person, don't do that, man. It's like you're bashing someone because of their past. They inherited it. Yeah, don't do that. Oli is saying don't do that too. This may sound nitpicky until it's done to you. But pointing to someone just because they come from a certain country and then referring everything that happened in that country to that person, it puts the weight of their history on them when they didn't really ask for it. They possibly share the same opinion as you about most things, but the moment you do this, you put them on their defense. And it usually goes downhill from here. Simply pointing to someone when you talk about geopolitics like it's happening today can be disrespectful, and I didn't really realize this until it happened to me, like as if I embody every decision made by a popular person back home. I'm not that person. And just because I come from that country doesn't mean that I also have the same conclusion or opinion as that popular person back home. If you're really curious about something, then make a good friend or ask someone, just phrasing it differently without putting a conclusion in the question. I'm curious about this conflict and this is what I read on Google. I don't know if that's really accurate. What do you have to say or think about that? Because remember, history will never favor the tiger. It will always favor the hunter because the hunter wrote history. So don't just read something online and expect it to be the very word of God. Just because it's written somewhere doesn't make it necessarily true. Even today, the United Kingdom does not teach their children about colonialism in the detail that it's taught in India, for example, or another Commonwealth country. So popular media is no indication of the truth. This one thing I've heard more than just my friends doing, but probably it's just an Indian thing. Don't joke negatively about your own nationality. Often when we see something that's well done in a European or a Western country, we tend to immediately compare it to folks back home. Sometimes it's just a funny way of just pointing out that it's so bad back home. I don't know, is this just an India thing? If you're not Indian and you're watching this video, please let me know if you heard this in your country too. For India, I know for sure that we inherited a system that was not built for our benefit. So our cities probably are not as well planned as the European capital cities. A majority of cleaned planned cities in today's world were built on slavery. And we need to treat these differences with a little bit of sensitivity and not just cataloging everything Indian as not good. The problem is it mars someone as dirty, undesirable, or sometimes even stupid just because of the nationality that they belong to. Because you're saying that this is how it is in a certain country, so everyone from that country is like that, If you follow current events, you know that this is not true. French students building revolutionary tech for the world, and Indian businessmen reaching to top management of most important companies. So if it's not really true, then why are we joking about this? Now that we can't say anything anymore, but it's just too convenient to point to a German guy on the table and say German clocks are amazing, and then an Indian guy later and say Indian traffic is terrible. What do you expect the Indian guy on the table to do about this? Why are you even saying it? Did anyone ask you, wait, hang on, how is traffic in India? In that case, say, Indian traffic is terrible. Knowing that both people on the table inherited this and didn't build it themselves, let's move on. Number 4 is kind of a controversial advice, but in my opinion, take it or leave it, don't talk politics at work. Now, I do believe that one should feel free to express oneself. But at a workplace, there is a lot at stake. Without your job, life can be extremely difficult in a foreign country. That is not the place for people to brand you by a political view or your beliefs. It's just wise to avoid the whole thing unless you're really close to your colleagues. People have hidden opinions and they probably don't even tell you that they're branding you, but they just hear you, probably even agree with you in the front, and then you may face consequences for what you just said. In my experience so far, workplace has been a competitive environment and people can use anything to block or defame you. Speak your mind with the friends you've made. By all means, it helps you open up your mind and see the world through their vantage point, through their perspective. But don't involve this at work because you'll probably yield passive aggressive remarks, responses, and really like a cold shoulder treatment just because you had a catch up with some colleagues and you had a point of view about the Ukraine war. Avoid politics. It's wise. People just like to tag each other and put them away conveniently in boxes for everyone to see, and then that tag just sticks. You don't want that. Which nicely segues into my next point. Don't tag people. Be open to change your mind. A close-minded person is someone who never updates his opinion on something. His version of something is the ultimate truth. Nothing has ever changed. Hence, this is reality, the only truth that matters. To be an honest, open-minded person is to put to the test your beliefs as frequently as you can, or at least when you're challenged by your friends. If you don't have the energy to put this thing to the test every time you're challenged, then you shouldn't have such a passionate opinion about this thing, because clearly you don't want to put in the work to verify the evidence or to test the validity of the... Is this making sense? I just feel like I'm rambling at this point. Nothing is less attractive than a grumpy old man who's made up his mind, who just won't listen and will keep repeating loudly his conclusion, which is not based on reason. Read widely and talk to people before you form an opinion about something. And in case you're reading a history book that doesn't talk about the tiger or only glorifies the hunter, be willing to engage in peaceful discussion to learn what was not written in the book. In my Rich Life video, I've spoken about how I've cultivated this cultural relevance. This is something that you can do even before you move to France or another country that you're moving to change, reshape your life. So much changes when you move and you better be culturally intelligent. I hope your stay in France turns out to be a fruitful one where you make friends for life and you reach your financial and your career goals. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up. It definitely helps the channel and this video specifically. I'll see you guys next week. Take care of yourselves and keep learning.